The story begins with a situation that no one could have imagined. The son of a powerful mafia boss, a young boy full of life and laughter, suddenly fell gravely ill. It started with what seemed like a common fever, something small that anyone would dismiss as minor. But soon it became clear that this was no ordinary sickness. The boy's condition deteriorated quickly, leaving his family terrified and desperate. He became weak and pale, unable to eat or move properly. His laughter faded into silence, and the house that once echoed with joy turned into a place of fear and anxiety. The mafia boss, a man known for his ruthlessness and power, had never faced anything he could not control. But here, he was powerless. Desperate, the boss summoned the most renowned doctors in the city. Specialists from every corner arrived, each claiming that they could cure the boy. They examined him, ran tests, and discussed possible treatments. But as days passed, nothing worked. The child's condition grew worse and hope began to fade. Even the doctors, confident and experienced, admitted that this was beyond their skills. The frustration in the room was palpable. People whispered that the boy might not survive, and the fear in the mafia boss's heart grew with every passing hour. The atmosphere in the boss's mansion was tense and grim. The servants walked on tiptoe, afraid to make a mistake or say the wrong thing. Family members argued about what to do next, some suggesting more conventional treatments, others hinting at unconventional or secretive methods. But the truth was simple. No one knew what could save the boy. The mafia boss, a man feared by everyone in his city, now felt helpless. His power, influence, and wealth, everything that made him untouchable, were useless against the fragile life of his son. Outside the mansion, rumors began to spread. People in the city whispered about the mafia boss's predicament. Some expressed sympathy, others saw it as a chance to take advantage. Yet inside, the family's world had narrowed down to a single thought: saving the boy. Everyone hoped for a miracle, but miracles seemed impossible. The boy's illness was mysterious, complex, and rare. Even with all the money in the world, no one had a solution. The doctors tried every possible treatment they knew. Some used advanced technology, others applied traditional methods, and a few even suggested experimental procedures. Each day, the boy's health swung between hope and despair. One morning he would seem slightly better, and by evening he would be weaker than ever. Watching his child suffer took a toll on the mafia boss like nothing else ever had. He had faced countless dangers, defeated enemies, and survived attacks that would have killed most men, but his son's life was slipping away, and there was nothing he could do. As the boy's condition worsened, the mafia boss's anxiety turned into desperation. He began questioning everything. Had he made mistakes? Could his lifestyle have affected his son? Were the doctors lying, or were they truly incapable? For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Not the kind of fear that comes from enemies or threats, but the raw, piercing fear of losing someone he loved more than anything. Nights became sleepless as he sat by his son's bed, watching every breath, praying for a sign of improvement. Even the mafia boss's usual allies and friends grew worried. Some suggested bringing in spiritual healers, mystics, or people known for performing miracles. Others advised keeping the situation secret, fearing that news of the boy's illness could be seen as weakness and invite enemies to attack. But the boss could not care about appearances anymore. All that mattered was saving his son. Every plan, every idea seemed either too risky or impossible. The family was trapped in a situation that no money, no influence, and no power could fix. The crisis reached a peak when the boy's health declined dramatically. The doctors admitted openly that they could do nothing further. Their treatments had failed, and conventional medicine offered no solution. The mafia boss, a man who had never bowed to anyone, felt an unfamiliar sense of helplessness. He was forced to confront the terrifying reality. His son might die, and there was no one in the world who could stop it. It was in this moment of despair that the first whispers of hope appeared. Rumors of a young prodigy, a girl from a humble background with extraordinary intelligence, who might be able to save the boy when everyone else had failed. The stage was set for something extraordinary. The crisis had reached its peak. Fear and hopelessness hung over the mansion, and the mafia boss was ready to try anything, no matter how unconventional. This was the moment when ordinary solutions had failed, and the world seemed to have no answer. The boy's life hung by a fragile thread, waiting for a miracle that no one expected, but soon, an unexpected hero would step forward to change everything. While the mafia boss and his household sank deeper into despair, rumors began to circulate about a young girl with a mind unlike anyone else's. She wasn't from a wealthy family or connected to powerful people. In fact, her life was the complete opposite. She was the daughter of a cleaning lady, living in a small, cramped apartment in one of the city's forgotten neighborhoods. Her world was one of hard work and modest means, yet it was filled with curiosity, books, and a burning desire to learn. From a very young age, she had shown an extraordinary ability to understand things others could not. While other children played, she studied patterns, solved problems, and asked questions that baffled even adults. Her talent was quiet, unnoticed by most, yet unstoppable. Teachers often marveled at her intelligence but could not fully grasp the depth of her understanding. She had a mind that worked differently, connecting facts, observing minute details, and solving problems with creativity that no conventional approach could match. Despite her brilliance, she had never been in a position to showcase her abilities on a grand stage. Her life was one of survival, helping her mother with chores and earning a little money whenever she could, while secretly cultivating her knowledge and skills. Meanwhile, the mafia boss's son remained dangerously ill. Doctors had given up hope, and the boy's condition continued to worsen. The mafia boss, desperate and willing to consider anything, heard whispers of this prodigy girl. At first, he was skeptical. How could the daughter of a cleaning lady, a child unknown to the world of medicine and power, accomplish what the city's top doctors could not? But when all conventional options had failed, skepticism gave way to a strange, fragile hope. Through a series of unexpected connections, a friend, a relative, and a whispered recommendation, the girl's name reached the mafia boss. He learned of her reputation for intelligence and problem-solving that bordered on genius. Despite his doubts, the thought of anyone offering a solution sparked a flicker of possibility. In a world where power usually dictated outcomes, this was different. The only chance to save his son came not from influence or wealth, but from pure talent and insight. The girl, unaware of the storm her reputation had caused, was living her ordinary life. She had faced challenges before, but nothing of this magnitude. When she received the request, she understood the stakes immediately. The boy's life depended on her, and she could not afford mistakes. Unlike the doctors who had tried standard methods, she relied on her analytical mind, intuition, and understanding of rare conditions. The challenge was daunting, almost impossible, but her resolve was stronger than fear. The mafia boss, usually unflinching and commanding, found himself waiting nervously, unsure whether hope or disappointment would arrive. The girl, with her quiet confidence, prepared to face a world she had never imagined, one of wealth, danger, and immense pressure. It was a collision of two very different worlds, the ruthless, high-stakes life of the mafia and the humble, disciplined, extraordinary life of a young prodigy. Neither could predict what would happen next, but the stage was set for an incredible turning point. The impossible challenge had begun. A child's life hung in the balance, and the only person capable of saving him came from the most unexpected place. As she stepped into the mansion carrying only her knowledge, intuition, and determination, everyone around her, family, doctors, and the mafia boss himself, felt the weight of the moment. The world seemed to pause. Could the daughter of a cleaning lady succeed where the most powerful doctors had failed? The answer was about to unfold in ways no one could have imagined. The girl arrived at the mafia boss's mansion, a place so different from her own humble home that it felt like stepping into another world. Marble floors gleamed under golden chandeliers, servants moved silently around vast hallways, and the air smelled of expensive perfumes and tension. Yet she remained calm. She had faced challenges before, not this grand but just as demanding in their own way. Her life had been full of struggles that had shaped her mind, sharpened her instincts, and taught her resilience. She knew that brilliance alone wasn't enough. Courage and patience mattered just as much. Her story began long before this moment. Growing up as the daughter of a cleaning lady, she had seen the world through eyes that learned to notice the smallest details. While other children played, she helped her mother scrub floors, wash windows, and carry heavy buckets of water. But even in these ordinary tasks, she saw patterns, understood processes, and developed a sense of discipline that would serve her later in ways no classroom could teach. Books became her escape and her guide. She read everything she could get her hands on, science, medicine, mathematics, and stories of people who changed the world through their minds. Every page added to her knowledge, and every hardship added to her determination. Despite her brilliance, she had lived quietly. Her talent had been recognized in school, but she had never had the chance to face a challenge of this magnitude. Saving a life, especially the life of the son of a mafia boss, was unlike anything she had done before. Yet she was not intimidated by power, wealth, or fear. She had grown up in a world where strength was measured not by money or influence, but by intellect, perseverance, and the ability to solve problems others could not. This was her element, even if no one else saw it that way. As she entered the boy's room, she observed him carefully. He was weak, pale, and barely conscious. Machines beeped softly around him, and doctors stood nearby, unsure of what else to do. She did not flinch. She studied his condition quietly, examining every symptom, asking precise questions, and noting every detail that had been overlooked. The doctors, confident in their years of experience, watched in silent astonishment. Here was a young girl, barely older than some of their own students, challenging everything they thought they knew. Her approach was different from anything they had tried. She did not rely solely on standard procedures or textbooks. She combined logic, observation, and creative thinking in a way that seemed almost instinctive. She asked questions that no one had considered, looked at patterns in the boy's symptoms, and formulated ideas that others had dismissed as impossible. Her mind moved quickly, analyzing, connecting, and hypothesizing with precision and clarity. Every step she took was deliberate, every action calculated. Yet her heart remained compassionate, never losing sight of the fragile life she was trying to save. The mafia boss, who had grown used to controlling every situation, watched in a mixture of fear and awe. He realized that this girl, this humble daughter of a cleaning lady, was not ordinary. She carried within her something rare, a mind that could see solutions where others saw only dead ends. In that moment, he felt a strange mix of hope and disbelief. The power of money, influence, and fear had failed him, but this young prodigy offered a possibility he had never imagined. Her presence transformed the room. The tension that had hung like a heavy cloud began to shift. People who had given up felt a spark of hope. And though the girl remained humble, quiet, and focused, everyone sensed that something extraordinary was about to happen. This was no ordinary hero. She was someone shaped by hardship, driven by intellect, and guided by a determination to make the impossible possible. In a world ruled by fear and power, she was the unexpected force of change, the one who might save a life that everyone else had given up on. The day of the encounter was tense, charged with an almost electric energy. The mafia boss, a man used to controlling every aspect of his world, sat rigidly in his chair, his dark eyes fixed on the young prodigy standing before him. The mansion, usually a place of unchallenged authority, felt strangely silent. Servants paused in the hallways, and even the doctors, the so-called experts who had failed to save his son, watched from a distance with cautious curiosity. No one had expected this. A child of a cleaning lady confronting a crisis that even the most brilliant professionals could not solve. The girl, calm and focused, did not flinch under the weight of their stares. She had faced adversity her entire life, poverty, prejudice, and doubt, but never before had she been called to act in a world so foreign and intimidating. This room, filled with power, fear, and desperation, was unlike anything she had seen, yet her mind worked with clarity and precision. She had studied every detail she could about the boy's illness, analyzed every symptom reported by the doctors, and developed a plan that was both bold and unconventional. The mafia boss spoke first, his voice low and commanding, testing her confidence. "Do you truly think you can save him? He is my son. He is everything to me. And all the best doctors in the city have failed." His eyes bore into her, searching for doubt. The girl looked back without fear, her expression steady. "I cannot promise miracles," she said softly, "but I will do everything in my power. I will see what no one else has seen and try what no one else has dared." The tension in the room was palpable. The doctors, initially skeptical, began to realize that this girl's approach was different. Unlike them, she did not rely solely on procedures she had been taught. She observed, questioned, and thought creatively. She noticed details that others had overlooked, a pattern in the boy's symptoms, a small anomaly in his lab results, a subtle clue hidden in the timing of his condition. These were the keys that might unlock a solution, if anyone had the vision to see them. For the Mafia boss, this encounter was both unnerving and strangely hopeful. He had spent his life dealing with threats, betrayals, and violence, yet here he was powerless in the face of his son's illness. Money, influence, and fear, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the mind in front of him, a mind that had not been shaped by wealth or status, but by intellect, observation, and determination. And perhaps, just perhaps, it held the answer he had been desperately seeking. The girl approached the boy's bedside with a quiet confidence. She spoke softly to him, noting his reactions, monitoring his breathing, and gently examining him in ways that were careful, precise, and compassionate. The doctors watched, some with skepticism, some with awe. It was clear that she was not simply following instructions. She was thinking, analyzing, and improvising in real time. Every move, every observation seemed to hold meaning, as if she were seeing the illness not as a problem to be feared, but as a puzzle to be solved. As the encounter unfolded, the atmosphere began to shift. Desperation gave way to a fragile sense of hope. The Mafia boss, still tense but cautiously optimistic, realized that the girl might be his last chance. And the girl, despite the stakes and the pressure, remained calm and determined. She was not intimidated by the world of power, danger, or expectation. She was driven by a purpose greater than fear, the purpose of saving a life when all others had failed. This was the moment when two very different worlds collided: the ruthless empire of a mafia boss and the humble, brilliant mind of a young prodigy. In that room, nothing else mattered, not power, not money, not fear. Only knowledge, observation, and courage held the key. And as the girl began her work, everyone watching knew that what happened next could change everything forever. The room was thick with tension, the kind that made every heartbeat loud and every breath heavy. The boy lay motionless, fragile as porcelain, while the doctors and the mafia boss watched the young prodigy move quietly, deliberately, like someone solving a puzzle only she could understand. Unlike the doctors who had relied on routines, tests, and procedures, she was guided by observation, intuition, and a deep understanding of patterns. She examined every small detail: the boy's pulse, the faint changes in his breathing, the subtle swelling of his limbs, and quietly noted everything others had missed. Hours passed as she worked, sometimes silently mumbling to herself, sometimes writing notes in her notebook, connecting facts in a way no one else could follow. She noticed that some of the boy's symptoms were linked to an unusual combination of conditions, rare enough that even experienced doctors might never encounter it in a lifetime. What made her unique wasn't just knowledge. It was her ability to think differently, to see beyond what everyone else accepted as the limits of medicine. The mafia boss leaned closer, his eyes narrowing with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "Is there really a way?" he whispered to one of the doctors. The doctor shook his head. "I don't know. I've never seen anyone approach it like this." Even the most seasoned professionals in the room felt something shift, a sense that this girl's mind was operating on a level beyond theirs, breaking rules they had accepted as unbreakable. Finally, after long hours of careful observation and calculation, she spoke. "I understand what is happening," she said calmly, her voice steady, carrying a quiet authority. She explained that the boy's illness was not a simple disease. It was a rare, complex condition that required a treatment no one had tried before. She outlined a plan that blended scientific precision with unconventional thinking, a solution that was daring, but meticulously reasoned. Every step had a purpose, every detail accounted for. The mafia boss's heart raced. Could a child, someone so young and from a life of struggle, really know more than all the top doctors combined? His mind, trained to command and control, struggled to accept it. But when he looked at the boy, his own son, pale and vulnerable, he realized he had no choice but to trust her. For the first time in his life, he put his faith in pure intellect and courage rather than power or money. As she began to administer her plan, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The doctors watched, unsure whether to intervene or step back. Every measurement, every step was precise yet innovative. It was clear that her brilliance was not theoretical. It was alive, active, and capable of real change. Slowly, the boy's vital signs began to stabilize. First barely noticeable, then more clearly. His pulse steadied, his breathing evened out, and color returned to his cheeks. Hope, fragile and tentative, began to flicker in the room. The breakthrough was not sudden. It was the result of careful thinking, observation, and action. The prodigy had done what others could not. She had seen what no one else could see, thought what no one else could think, and acted with courage where others had failed. The boy's life, once teetering on the edge, now had a chance. The mafia boss, normally cold and unyielding, felt something he rarely did: gratitude, awe, and a deep, almost reverent respect for the girl before him. He realized that power was meaningless compared to intelligence and determination. Here was a mind that could challenge the impossible and win. And in that moment, everyone in the room knew something extraordinary had happened. A child's life was no longer in danger. Thanks to the brilliance of a girl no one had expected to change the world, the breakthrough was more than medical. It was a triumph of human potential, of courage, and of seeing possibilities where others saw only hopelessness. This was the moment when the impossible began to bend to the will of one extraordinary mind, proving that true genius knows no boundaries, no limits, and no social barriers. Even after the breakthrough, the room remained tense. The boy's life was no longer teetering on the edge, but the journey was far from over. The illness was stubborn, unpredictable, and dangerous. Every small change could mean progress or disaster. The mafia boss, who had spent his life commanding fear and obedience, now found himself powerless, watching each heartbeat, each shallow breath, as if the world itself depended on them. For the first time, he realized that true battles were not fought with fists, guns, or money, but with patience, courage, and intellect. The prodigy did not falter. Calm and focused, she continued her work with precision and determination. She monitored the boy, adjusted her approach, and observed every reaction with an intensity that made even the seasoned doctors in the room sit in silent awe. Her hands moved carefully, but her mind raced faster than anyone else's, analyzing, calculating, and improvising at every step. It was a delicate dance between science and intuition, life and death, hope and despair. The doctors, who had once been the boy's last hope, watched helplessly as she took control. They realized their knowledge, though extensive, had been limited by convention. This girl, humble and unassuming, was breaking the rules of traditional medicine and rewriting the path to recovery. Every decision she made seemed audacious, yet it worked. The boy's breathing grew steadier, his color slowly returned, and for the first time in days a faint smile flickered on his face. The mafia boss felt a mix of disbelief and relief. His world, built on power and fear, had failed him, but a child from a world he had never cared about had succeeded. He could not fully understand how she was doing it, yet he trusted her implicitly. He had no choice. Every second counted, every decision mattered, and failure was not an option. Hours turned into days, and the boy's condition remained fragile. The prodigy worked tirelessly, refusing to leave his side. She had no grand assistance, no army of experts, only her mind, her courage, and her relentless determination. Each day she adjusted, recalculated, and refined her methods. It was exhausting mentally and emotionally, but she never wavered. She had faced challenges before, but none as critical as this. One wrong move could undo all her progress. Outside the room, tension rippled through the mansion. Servants whispered about the girl. Doctors murmured in astonishment, and the mafia boss paced nervously, waiting for signs of improvement. The impossible was unfolding in front of everyone, and the air was thick with awe and anxiety. People began to understand that this was more than a medical challenge. It was a battle of ingenuity and courage against a life-threatening storm. Against all odds, the boy began to recover. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly but steadily. His pulse strengthened, his eyes regained clarity, and his weak movements grew stronger. The prodigy's strategy, once considered risky and unconventional, was working. The room, once filled with despair and tension, now held a cautious optimism. In the face of fear, doubt, and near impossible odds, the prodigy had shown what determination, intelligence, and courage could achieve. She had defied expectations, broken boundaries, and brought life back to a boy that everyone else had given up on. The mafia boss, a man who had conquered empires and commanded fear, felt gratitude and humility in a way he never had before. He realized that power was meaningless without wisdom, and hope could emerge from the most unexpected places. This was not just a victory over illness, it was a triumph of human potential, resilience, and brilliance. Against all odds, the prodigy had proven that the impossible could be conquered, and the boy's survival became a testament to courage, creativity, and unwavering determination. The moment had arrived when the impossible became real. The boy, once pale and frail, now sat upright in his bed, his breathing steady, his color restored, and his eyes bright with life. The room, which had been heavy with fear and uncertainty, now shimmered with quiet amazement. The doctors, who had exhausted every method in their knowledge and failed, stood in stunned silence. They watched as the young prodigy, the daughter of a cleaning lady, smiled gently at her patient, her hands steady, her confidence unwavering. She had done what no one else could. The mafia boss, a man feared by everyone in the city, felt an emotion he had never allowed himself to fully experience: gratitude. His voice, usually sharp and commanding, softened as he spoke. You saved him," he said, almost in disbelief. The words seemed inadequate for what had just happened. He had spent years building power, fighting enemies, and controlling every corner of his world. But here, nothing he had could have saved his son. Only her brilliance, courage, and determination had succeeded. Word of the miracle spread quickly. People whispered about the girl who had defied all expectations, who had stepped into a world of wealth, fear, and danger, and emerged victorious. She became more than a healer. She became a symbol of hope, of talent emerging from places society often overlooked. Those who had doubted her could no longer ignore her. Her name, once unknown, was now spoken with respect, awe, and admiration. But the prodigy remained humble. She did not seek fame or reward. For her, the victory was in the life saved, in the boy's laughter returning, in the fear in the mafia boss's eyes giving way to relief. Her journey had never been about recognition. It had always been about solving problems, using her mind, and helping those who needed it most. Yet the world could not help but take notice. She had proven that true genius knows no boundaries of wealth, status, or circumstance. The mafia boss, once a figure of fear and intimidation, now saw her differently. He realized that power alone could not change the world, but intellect, courage, and compassion could. He respected her in a way he had never respected anyone, and in that respect a quiet bond formed, not of wealth or authority, but of recognition for brilliance and bravery. For the boy, life would never be the same. The experience left him stronger, more aware, and deeply connected to the girl who had saved him. And for the girl, the triumph was a confirmation of her own potential. She had faced the ultimate test and emerged victorious, proving not only her skill but her unwavering courage in the face of fear. The story of her achievement began to inspire others. People realized that brilliance could come from the humblest of beginnings, and that determination and intelligence were more powerful than money, influence, or social status. She had not only saved a life, she had changed minds, shattered expectations, and shown the world that hope could emerge from the most unexpected places. In the quiet moments that followed, the mafia boss watched his son laugh for the first time in days, his heart full of gratitude and wonder. The girl, standing calmly beside the bed, understood that her work had made a difference beyond medicine. It had given life, hope, and a story of triumph that would be remembered. Her recognition was not in applause or riches, but in the lives she had touched, the barriers she had broken, and the inspiration she had sparked. This was the moment when a humble hero became legendary, when courage met brilliance, and when an impossible challenge was conquered. The world had witnessed something extraordinary, and it would never forget the day the daughter of a cleaning lady saved the son of a mafia boss. Time moved on, but the story of that extraordinary event did not fade. The boy, now fully recovered, grew up with a deep sense of gratitude and awe for the young prodigy who had saved him. Every milestone in his life, his first day at school, his first step into adulthood, was shadowed by the memory of how close he had come to losing everything, and how a single person, armed with intellect, courage, and determination, had altered the course of his life forever. The mafia boss, a man who had once ruled through fear and power, changed too. He realized that strength was not only about dominance or control, it was also about humility, respect, and recognizing brilliance wherever it appeared. The young girl, once a simple cleaning lady's daughter, had shown him that talent and courage could emerge from the most unexpected corners of the world. From that day forward, he carried a quiet admiration for her, and his actions reflected a newfound understanding. Power without wisdom was meaningless. The prodigy herself continued her journey, but she never sought fame. She returned to her studies, expanded her knowledge, and dedicated herself to helping others who had been overlooked, underestimated, or forgotten. Hospitals, schools, and research labs became her arenas, not for glory but for impact. People who had once doubted her watched in awe as she solved problems that had stumped experts, quietly changing the world one life at a time. Her legacy was not just the lives she saved, but the hope she inspired, that intelligence, determination, and courage could rewrite destinies. Society began to take notice. Stories of her brilliance spread far beyond the mansion where the mafia boss lived. Young children from underprivileged backgrounds saw her as proof that their circumstances did not define their potential. Ordinary people realized that talent could exist anywhere, and that greatness often comes wrapped in humility. The girl's actions became a beacon, showing that the impossible could be achieved if one combined knowledge with courage and compassion. Even the mafia boss's empire, once feared for ruthlessness, was subtly transformed by her influence. He encouraged education and innovation within his circles, recognizing that the world needed more minds like hers. His son, now thriving, carried forward the lessons of resilience and gratitude that the prodigy had instilled. Her impact reached far beyond one life. It had shifted perspectives, inspired change, and left an imprint on everyone who witnessed or heard her story. In quiet moments, the prodigy reflected on her journey. From a life of struggle and invisibility to a moment of unparalleled triumph, she understood that her purpose was bigger than herself. She had not only solved an impossible problem, but had also rewritten the narrative of what could be achieved against all odds. Her story became a testament to the human spirit, that brilliance knows no class, courage transcends fear, and determination can overcome even the most insurmountable challenges. And so, her legacy endured, not in statues, awards, or headlines, but in the lives she touched, the hope she inspired, and the example she set for generations to come. The daughter of a cleaning lady had saved the son of a mafia boss, and in doing so, she had shown the world that greatness often comes from the humblest beginnings, waiting patiently for its moment to shine.